Welcome everyone, Costin here with a leveling guide for Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires using the Total War Planner website, which is a work in progress, but it does contain Warhammer 2, Warhammer 3, SFO, Radius, Kataps, and other mods as well. So it is a great tool to plan out how you're going to level up your characters in a Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires campaign. For this video, I'm going to be covering the Empire, the Legendary Lords, the Regular Lords, and the Heroes, because the Empire is one of the most played races in the game for all the issues they do have. So, starting with Karl Franz, looking at him, he's probably the most played Legendary Lord in the entire game. You can select the mount option, and you're automatically going to unlock the mounts at various levels, like Warhorse at 4, Pegasus at 12, and Deathclaw at 16. Now, what you want to do with Karl Franz is you want to get a Room Marcher Inspiring Presence. Room Marcher for the campaign movement range, Inspiring Presence for the unit experience per turn. That's really the main benefit here, because it is going to give you a passive increase of experience, and you want to use that because it will really help you out in terms of getting veteran units throughout the course of your campaign. And I would say for like 90% of Legendary Lords and Lords, you want to get both of these skills. The exceptions are the ones that I am going to mention as I cover the various Legendary Lords of the game. Now, at this point, I want to get Pistol Core. The reason I want to get Pistol Core 3 points up until level 6 is not for the missile strength, it's for the 20% ammunition that it does have. The reason this is important is because the Empire tactics mainly revolve around using archers, and if you don't have archers, getting crossbowmen as quickly as possible, and using them to win field battles and crucially sieges, because the Empire doesn't have a good way of winning siege battles. Their infantry isn't good enough to just storm the gates. The artillery takes a long time to get, cavalry is not going to cut it, so your best siege tactic strategy is to get a bunch of range units, as many as you can, in your army, and position them just outside the walls and kill everything in sight. Having extra ammunition is pretty important for that. Now, at this point, you gotta ask yourself, once you've gotten these skills, you gotta ask yourself, how much of a special skill line do you want to get? In the case of Karl Franz, I don't want to get everything, like Imperial Special Forces, not too important because I only have one unit of Reichsguard early on in my campaign. I'm not going to recruit others because they're not worth it. Emperor's Men, same situation. Like, I'm not going to get great swords for a while. Like, the moment you can recruit great swords, you want to get the skill, sure, but you're not going to be able to get a large number of great swords very early on in a campaign. So not an important skill. So that means that what I really want is everything else. So I want either 3 skill points, because this one is going to cost 1. So I want either 3 or maybe 4 skill points. So I can keep leveling until I'm rank 8. But in this particular tool, I can't simulate how I would actually level up in the game, in the sense that I would get to rank 6 or 8 and then stop, wait until I get rank 12 and just spend the skill points on the special skill line. So I'm going to spend skills that I would otherwise do after I get the special skill line. So once I am at rank 12, so like level 13, 14, all that. Well, I would get Hold the Line and Hard to Hit. The other rail line skills are now worth it because, again, you just don't have enough units to justify spending the points there. Like getting on a steel, for instance, when you only have 1 unit of great swords just doesn't make sense when there's other benefits to get. So getting melee defense from Hard to Hit and Hold the Line is pretty important. I would also get Sigmar's Ward. While Karl Franz doesn't necessarily have to deal with a lot of range units in his campaign early on, one of the things you can do with him in sieges, if you're dealing with wall towers, say for instance you're attacking Festus's main settlement, one of the things you can do with him is send him ahead of the army so the towers, the wall towers, are targeting him. Having extra missile resistance will help with that. So right now I'm at rank 9. At this point I would get Leader of Men. Leadership power size is always nice because extra leadership that you can get, and 15% upkeep, even if it's just 2 units, it's still useful. It will save you some money, and it will be worth it in the long term. Or you could ignore it and go for full plate armor. By the way, I'm going to get Leader of Men and then 2 points in full plate armor. I would get full plate armor for 15 armor versus 15% HP, because while the HP is obviously useful, getting that extra armor, I would argue, is more important because it will reduce the damage he is taking. Either way, at this point, with this tool, I can use the special skill line. So with the special skill line, what I want is obviously the first skill. In this case, it is a useful skill because it's going to give you more experience and 1 Lord Recruit rank. And then what I want to get here especially is to get Majestic Enforcer for minus 10% upkeep and 1 recruit rank. Heroic Knightly Band, so you can get an extra Imperial Captain once you can recruit them. Between research and the skill, you can get like 3 Imperial Captains or even 4 pretty early on in your campaign. And then you get the choice of getting Emperor's Journey or not. 10% weapon strength and Unbreakable can be pretty useful, but is it so important to get early on? Maybe so, maybe not so much. It depends on what you're facing. Like if you end up facing Vlad, it can be useful to improve his dueling capability. But otherwise, it's not necessarily too big of a priority, I would argue. But get Emperor's Journey, we're rank 16, we've got the Deathclaw, we have a decent army strength at this point, and we also have decent dueling capability. Okay, once you're rank 16, what do you go for there? Well, depending on how many fights you're dealing with in campaign, and I would strongly recommend being as aggressive as possible to rank up as quickly as possible, you're probably not going to have Greatsword recruitment. You're certainly not going to have Demigryph recruitment at this point. So instead of spending points in the red skill line or bothering with the blue skill line, because the blue skill line points are not worth it early on, they're more of a late game benefit, I would get 2 points in Scarred Veteran. I would ignore Charge, it's not worth it at all. Gets a 15% HP. Don't bother with 12 melee attack because it's just not worth it as a skill, because you already have a fairly substantial amount of melee attack and you can get items to help you with that, and then get Foe Seeker. And after this point is your decision what you want to do. Like at this point when you're close to rank 20, you can like get on a steal, get rally, get Sharpshooter. Like you want Sharpshooter, you do want stand your ground, taste for battle. Like you want to get that melee attack. Physical resistance in particular is going to be pretty important. Artillery Master, I would ignore Strength of Hardship because while it can help you with your Spearmen with shields, giving them some spell resistance and leadership, overall, like Spearmen, you're only gonna, like, Spearmen are a unit used in the early game to the mid game, otherwise you're not going to bother with that. You want to get skills for units you're going to use throughout the campaign. So buffing units like Emperor's Finest is just not worth it in a campaign because you're not going to use those units in the long term. And then get Blade Shield, Tenacity, and Deadly Onslaught. This is rank 32. Get Mentor whenever you can because it gives you your heroes in your army more experience, and it gives your lords more experience as well. You're sharing that experience with them. It will slow down your experience gain and or legendary lord, but the key in a Warhammer free campaign is to build as many powerful armies as quickly as possible. At this point at rank 33, you do have several choices. Obviously getting Imperial Gunnery, this puts you to rank 36. What do you do at rank 36? Well, you obviously, or 37 really, because I should have gotten the Emperor's Band earlier, because at this point I'm going full on great swords. So what do you do right now? You still have 13 skill points that you can spend. Really? Well, you could at this point certainly get the melee attack if you think it's worth it, or you could spend 3 points in Burning Reassuring Presence, depends on how much corruption you're dealing with. But the Empire doesn't have a control issue, so Iron Disciplinarian is not worth it. Leader of Renown is not worth it at all at this point. Like, it's only 15% recruit cost for his army, and you're probably going to recruit units in an army back home and transfer them over. So 3 points in Reassuring Presence, 1 point in Fervent, going into Irrepressible for casualty replenishment for the Lord itself. So you can really have Karl Franz just taking a lot of damage in battle and recovering very quickly. Then getting points in Quartermaster because you do have good casualty replenishment, 1 point in Alert, and points in Headhunter. Depending on what you're dealing with, you might also consider getting a lightning strike or maybe more ambush success chance as opposed to just Quartermaster, but generally speaking I would say Quartermaster into Headhunter is the better choice. And the value of Headhunter is not even the upkeep benefit, it's rather the campaign movement range. So you're getting for the blue skill line 10% campaign movement range. Then another point in Mentor, that leaves you 2 skill points. You can finish up getting Alert to intercept armies. Depends on what you're dealing with. In a campaign, like having that chance of intercepting ambush defense chance can be useful, or you can instead spend the points in Lightning Strike, and that will put you at rank 50. And that's how you level Karl Franz. Then looking at Balthazar Gelt, his dynamic is a bit different when it comes to skills. So, like with Gelt, get Inspiring Presence, Pistol Core, same deal, and hold the line. And this will put you to rank 7. But here's the thing about Balthazar Gelt. His special skill line is not really worth prioritizing at any cost. Like the Golden Face Mask and the Stronger Steel Armor is obviously worth it. It's also important to understand that he has an item that will buff one of your spells. So what I would do with Gelt is, once you're at rank 7, is I would get Searing Doom, Gehenna's Golden Hounds, Metal Shifting, and then Glittering Robe. There are several reasons behind Glittering Robe, and then of course Lorem Master. There are several reasons behind Glittering Robe as opposed to Plague of Rust. If you're playing a Gelt campaign, a lot of the opponents you're dealing with, unless you pick a fight with dwarves, but a lot of the opponents like the vampires, the ogres, the greenskins, they don't really have such high level armor on their units. So buffing your armor might be more important, and your first item that you're going to get in a campaign will also give you benefit to Glittering Robe. So get 2 points in Gehenna's Golden Hounds, 1 point Glittering Robe, 1 point Metal Shifting, get Sigmar's Sword, Evasion, and well, at this point actually, just to stop over here, right? You should obviously get Golden Face Max, Strong Inner Seal, then Glittering Robe, Lore Master, Lore of Metal, Evasion. Magical reserves, like once I get to this point in a magical skill tree, what I generally try and do is get magical reserves first, then get final transmutation for Gelt, upgrade it, Erding, Arcane Conduit, and potentially transmutation of lead if you so desire. It depends on what you're dealing with, because it can be a pretty powerful debuff to reduce the melee attack of enemies by that much, but keep in mind that the Empire army is very range focused, so you might kill everything before they even reach your lines, or the situation that's going to happen once they reach your lines, it's just not going to last very long. Like you can get artillery, so focusing on transmutation of lead is probably not worth it. And at this point, like once you've gotten all of this, like it's at this stage that you should focus on a steel, Imperial Gunnery if you so desire, or on a steel into Rally, Sharpshooter, Artillery Master, Taste for Battle, then finally get Imperial Gunnery. And this puts you at rank 44. You do have a choice with Gelt. I think Brass Lunged is not worth it, really, for Gelt. I mean, increasing the leadership power size can be useful, but keep in mind Gelt is probably going to be in the middle of your army anyway, so just increasing that power size, it's probably not as important as Karl Franz's skill. And Karl Franz's skill is worth it because of the upkeep benefit, not just because of the leadership power size. And it is better in that respect as well. But rank 35, you do have a choice. What do you want to do at this point? Because like all of these skills are kind of worthless. Like, oh, improving the ammo and missile strength for units you're probably not going to use, or Luminarchs, or hero capacity. Well, you're probably going to have a lot of mages anyway because you have faction benefit. So increasing hero capacity +2, yeah, it can be useful, sure, but not really too big of a priority. But you do need to get every single skill in order to unlock metal to gold magic. This gives you a 25% wins of magic benefit and 7% income from local province. The income benefit is worthless because this army is always going to be moving in hostile territory, so the income there is not too important. You can get it, or you can decide, you know what, spending free skill points is not worth that price. I would probably argue in favor of that, but depends on how much magic you need. Like, you can certainly get a lot of wins of magic as Gelt regardless of that, but it is your choice. Like, get it or not get it. Personally, I would not really prioritize it too much, and instead go Reassuring Presence, Fervent, into Quartermaster, Alert, Headhunter, rank 46, and at this point, yeah, you might just, bite the bullet, and that is it for Balthazar Gelt. Moving on to Marcus Wolfhart, same deal, though keep in mind his special skill line unlocks on rank 10. And unlike Karl Franz or Gelt, he has a lot of things you actually want here, so you want to really save up points. So getting the same thing, Room Marcher, Inspiring Presence, Pistol Core, and after this point, you really, really want to save up skills. Maybe even stop like with 2 points in Pistol Core at rank 5. But what you would get after you get the special skill line, hold the line at that point. And obviously what you would bother with, like for him, like Sigmar's Ward, though, don't throw him in a melee fight or don't have him soak the damage because he's not good with it. But with the special skill line, Master Survivalist for campaign movement range and casualty replenishment is pretty damn important. Irregular Elite is very important. It reduces the Huntsman and Archer upkeep by a substantial amount and gives them a substantial amount of missile strength. Sleight of Hand for double shot, telescopic aim, Vanguard deployment, and immune to psychology. Impervious to attack can be somewhat useful, but I would not necessarily prioritize it. And at this point, you're going to be rank 17, and then finish off getting on steel. This will give you a lot of armor for greatswords. And the thing about Marcus Wolfhard, he can get greatswords fairly early on in the campaign, so getting on a steel early on can actually be worth it. Though, obviously, I would focus on the special skill line, so unless you really, really are going to have a difficult fight, and he doesn't actually have a lot of early game difficult fights, so you can take your time with that. Unless you have a difficult fight, just save up from rank 5 to 10, then get the special skill line, and then bother with Honest Steel. And once you've gotten Honest Steel, go into Rally and get Sharpshooter and stand your ground as quickly as possible. And the thing is, you can get Taste for Battle, Artillery Master, Imperial Gunnery, and this will put you to rank 26. Now, once you're at rank 26, you gotta decide what you want to get. I would generally say the range skill line for him is pretty worthless, but there is a particularly important skill over here, and that's Short and True. So this gives him and his allies, like his capability in battle is pretty much non-existent. The way to view ranged heroes or ranged lords, you're looking at the campaign benefits because their benefits in the actual battle in a campaign are going to be fairly limited. So Sure and True, which gives armor-piercing missile damage, reload skill, base missile damage to your range units within 35 meters, is a pretty important benefit. And so is unlocking Executioner, potentially. To unlock Executioner, you do need to spend 4 skill points. What I probably get would be reload time reduction, obviously Mentor when it is available, and not missile strength necessarily, ammunition, get Executioner, that's putting you in rank 33. What you do after that is really up to you. You're not really dealing with the situation of a lot of heavy attrition in his campaign, or at least early on. Corruption might be an issue, depends on how long the Skavens have survived, but typically speaking, the Lizards are going to win the fight in the south. But at this point, you could obviously go down the blue skill line and eventually go for Headhunter for extra campaign movement range, Quartermaster, all that. That is one choice, and then you can also get his melee skill line, though not for the melee benefits, but rather to get Hunter's Snare. And you might even skip out on the blue skill line for him completely, or only go all the way here, and instead get Hunter's Trap, which does require you to spend quite a few skills. So getting, never worry about leadership on Legendary Lords, because they have pretty good leadership regardless. So getting Hunter's Trap, which can immobilize an enemy, is can be pretty damn powerful, but there are more important things, and this puts you with the second rank on Mentor, puts you at rank 50. Or you could ignore Hunter's Trap. I would always get Sure and True at the very least. Whether or not you want to get Executioner or Hunter's Trap, that's your decision. Or you could go down, Lightning Strike, Quartermaster, Alert. Don't bother with Logisticon, because you do have plenty of casualty replenishment for Master Survivalist on its own, and obviously for Warrior Priests. And then we look at Volkmar the Grim. Volkmar the Grim, partly because of how his campaign is designed, and partly because of how his kill line is designed, he takes the rules that I've covered so far and completely flips them on their head. So what you want to do with Volkmar the Grim in his campaign, if you're playing his campaign, you want to eliminate Manfred as quickly as possible. That means you're going to have some difficult fights early on in the campaign, because Manfred's army is no joke. So if you're doing that, if you're picking that fight with Manfred, if you're not, level up however you want, but if you're picking that fight with Manfred, what I would do, and this is what Arch Lectors can also do, is I would get, you start with the Grand Hammer of Sigmar. So what I would do is get Great Shield of Faith, which gives damage resistance to yourself and allies, and the Grand Soulfire into Second Nature. This puts you at rank 4. The special skill line is unlocked on rank 12. So you still have 2 points. So at this point, get Room Archer, Inspiring Presence, save up your skills, and then spend them, then start spending as normal once you get in the special skill line, because it is worth it. What you'd get after rank 12 would be Hard to Hit, Hold the Line, Sigmar Sword, and then 3 points in Pistol Core finally. Grand Soulfire is more important than some ammunition, especially because you're going to actually have field battles, some poor field battles against Manfred to fight. But once you're at rank 12, you do want to get the special skill line. Getting improvements for Free Company Militia, not too important, I would argue. I mean, you could make it work if you go for Emperor, not for Emperor's Finest necessarily. You could make it work with certain research and certain skills, but usually speaking, I don't think that they're worth investing the points in, nor are Flagellants. There are certainly a bunch of benefits in Volkmar's campaign for those units, for Free Company, for Imperial Knights, and Flagellants, but they're not really worth units worth investing too much into, as opposed to crossbowmen and archers. Maybe a couple of them very early on if you absolutely need them, just to take advantage of his early game benefits, but that's about it. Now, in terms of a special skill line, you will need to spend at least 2 points over here. Getting hero capacity for Witch Hunters in particular is important, because otherwise it's very difficult to increase the capacity. And then to, like, obviously flaming attacks and armor piercing damage, and then getting 20% casualty replenishment. You don't need a warrior priest in Volkmar's army, though you can certainly get that. And obviously strength of the penitent is pretty important. War Eternal, not really too important, I would argue, as far as I see it. Like, maybe for Imperial Knights, maybe using Imperial Knights in this campaign, which you normally wouldn't. In an Empire campaign, maybe like the speed, the charge bonus, the Wayfarer, sure. Could be all worth it if you decide to do it. I wouldn't necessarily do so, because by the point you're here, you've defeated Manfred, which is the biggest early game threat, and it's probably just better to focus on other units, other things in your campaign, and then get Demigryph Knights, which are a better unit. So going into on a Steel at this point, Rally, Sharpshooter, Time for a Taste for Battle, Stand Your Ground, Imperial Gunnery, of course, and then Full Plate Armor, Scarred Veteran, Mentor, getting Face Passion, or you could ignore getting on a Steel and instead focusing first on Scarred Veteran and Full Plate Armor, Face Passion, into more Blade Shield. Blade Master doesn't really matter all that much, but you could certainly use it, and then getting Benediction. And at this point, to rank 38 with 1 point in Mentor. What do you do after that? Well, that's your decision, really. You do have choices left. I would not bother with improving his melee skill line further. Like, weapon strength doesn't matter. Like, the way Volkmar is used is like you're using him mainly for the Grand Soulfire and his Battle Prayer benefit. But yeah, getting Reassuring Presence, Fervent. Heretic Hunter is a really powerful skill. You might even want to get this earlier, because it gives you that massive recruit rank. So you might even get it earlier than getting on a Steel and Imperial Gunnery. Depends on the point you're getting Warrior Priest. You're probably going to reach this. You're obviously going to be able to recruit Great Swords at the same level that you're getting Warrior Priest, but getting that 5 extra hero recruit rank is pretty damn powerful. And then Quartermaster Alert into Headhunter. And those are the Legendary Lords of the Empire. Like, this is rank 49, and maybe another point and alert to rank 50, and that is it. Let's move on to the regular Lords, and finally, moving on to the regular Lords. First off, let's talk about Archlectors. Archlectors work like Volkmar does. So they can get the Grand Hammer of Sigmar, the Grand Shield of Faith, and the Grand Soulfire very quickly by rank 4. Or you could ignore these and get Room Archer and Inspiring Presence, as always, with Pistol Core. What you decide to get is dependent on how quickly you're going to get this particular Lord in battle. Like, if you're going to spend time with this lord recruiting, then getting at least Inspiring Presence and Pistol Core, or just Inspiring Presence before you get these skills might be worth it. If, however, you're going to have this lord following around, then getting these skills is going to be important. So with the Arch Selector, yeah, you do want to get Pistol Core, Hold the Line, Sigmar's Ward, Hard to Hit, Full Plate Armor. You really want to improve the survivability over here, so Faith's Bastion. And at this point, like rank 17 with your second lord, yeah, you could go into Honest Steel, so you're just balancing things out between your red line skill and your blue line skill line. Blade Shield in particular, I would argue, is important. Benediction is also important, but not really something you necessarily need to rush for, as opposed to, say, getting Imperial Gunnery, Rally, getting all these army skills, and then finally getting Blade Master and Benediction, and going into Reassuring Presence, Fervent, Casualty Replenishment for the Lord, Quartermaster, and then either Ambush Defense Chance, Lightning Strike, though you don't need. With Empire, you should be able to get enough heroes to get good enough Casualty Replenishment. So this is how you level up an Arch Selector. The decision of what you go for, and then of course Mentor, and what you do after this point, like you could get Woundmaker if you want to improve his skill, his combat skill, or you could get, you know, Lightning Strike for instance. But what you decide to do with the Arch Selector early on is important, because they have access to this entire skill line by rank 4. So being able to get these skills can give you a fairly substantial advantage early on, especially if you've got a lore like this just following your main army around, because the Grand Soulfire ability is pretty powerful, and so is the Grand Shield of Faith. And I wouldn't ignore the Grand Hammer of Sigmar either. Then looking at Huntsman General, well, with Huntsman General, they do have a special skill line as well. And what you want to get first off is actually Survival Expert, because it's just going to be flat out better than Root Marcher. Because not only does it give you the same campaign movement range, but it also gives you Casualty Replenishment. And after that, depends on what kind of units you have. If you're getting crossbowmen, like the first lord I would recruit in a campaign would be an Arch Selector, just to get the skill line that they have. But the second lord that I would recruit would possibly be a Huntsman General, because of the campaign movement and Casualty Replenishment. And also Experienced Hunter can be pretty useful for hunters and archers. Like, this is the kind of army where you would want to give him potentially a bunch of archers. Like if it's a third army, maybe you just want to make a third army that's very cheap, just fill it up with archers. Or you could ignore Experienced Hunter and go Inspiring Presence and just get a bunch of crossbowmen for him, because, yeah, crossbowmen are still going to be better than regular archers. Depends on when you're recruiting it. Like, if you're just recruiting a bunch of huntsmen in this army, then yes, getting Experienced Hunter very quickly is important. And Circle of Protection once you do get Great Swords, Hold the Line. After that, the way I would see a Huntsman General is their skill line over here, with the exception of like Sure and True, is just not really worth bothering with in any way, shape, or form. And you only need to spend 2 points over here to get that, then Sigmar's Ward. And after that, what I would do is bother with the army skills, Sharpshooter, Artillery Master, Taste for Battle, Stand Your Ground. Don't, like, unless you're planning on dueling with your Huntsman General who has a very weak melee stats, I would not worry too much about that. So instead, buffing the army can really be the play for this guy. And when it comes to range capability, like, yeah, you could get potentially the Quiver of Akshi, but that does require 4 skill points. Like, if you're going to get any kind of like skills to buff his own combat ability, go for the melee skills like Get Armor, Scar Veteran, Hail of Fire, because that's going to give you reload skill for allies as well. And then go full on ahead into Blade Shield, Blade Master, and Funnel of Flame, which just is an improved version of Hail of Fire. And then once you've gotten all of that, yeah, Reassuring Presence, into Lord Casualty Replenishment, Quartermaster, Alert, and Headhunter. And that will put you at rank 45. Or you could ignore the entire melee skill line and get more in the blue skill line as you decide to go for it. But I would say, like with the Huntsman General, you're mainly getting him for the buffs into the army, like the casualty replacement, the campaign movement range, the range for Huntsman in particular can be pretty useful for a secondary lord or a tertiary lord rather. And then finally, for the regular lords, we have the General of the Empire. Nothing really special over here, so get Pistol Corps, hold the line, and then divide your attention between the melee skill line, because this guy is a tank. He does get the Imperial Griffin. So you divide your attention dependent on the units you're getting. Like, if you're getting a lot of great swords, then go pick this up. Get Imperial Gunnery as well, or just get Rally into Sharpshooter. Like, you want to prioritize getting Sharpshooter because it is a fairly substantial benefit for all your range units. Stand Your Ground, Taste of Battle, and then get Imperial Gunnery. And then Scar Veteran, Blade Shield, Blade Master, Deadly Onslaught, into Reassuring Presence, Fervent, Casualty Replenishment for Lord, Quartermaster, and 1 point in Alert. Like, without the special skill line, it is easier with the General of the Empire to focus them up on like just their dueling capability, but keep in mind that their dueling capability isn't going to be all that great. What do you do once you've unlocked all of these skills? Like obviously Sigmar's Ward as well. Well, you could get Lightning Strike. It might be a nice, solid, sturdy benefit, and then full-on Alert over here. And look, if you're going to get Siege Tanks, Siege Tanks and maybe Luminarchs, like if you're going to get Siege Tanks, maybe doing it with the General of an Empire in this kind of army, because you do have the skills to spend, maybe getting some of these for that 15% ward save would be the play. But Lords are pretty simple to level up. Finally, when it comes to heroes, well, mage-wise, I would argue that Great Wizards are generally the mages to play, but obviously, when it comes to mages, like if you're playing Karl Franz, you are going to get the random mage very quickly, and you can go into an Imperial Pegasus by rank 16 and get the Warhorse at rank 7. With mages, they get Scouting, so this gives you a magic item drop chance, which you do want to increase whenever possible. Only ignore Scouting if you desperately need to improve the casting capability very quickly. So with the Grey Wizard, which is the best mage that the Empire has, what you want to get is to get Miasma, 1 point in Miasma, 1 point in the Pendulum, then Smoke and Mirrors, to get that speed for allies, though it's not really too important, but it can be useful to improve the speed of your allies. And then full-on Pendulum, Evasion, and then Magical Reserves, Pit of Shades, all the other skills, Arcane Conduit, Sigmar's Ward to make him more resistant, full on with these skills for the armor piercing damage, and yeah, Scouting whenever possible. And yeah, just keep getting these skills. Don't bother with the blue skill line for heroes, just get all of the spells, because you want to keep your mages with the army, and so they're going to be on the front line, so that extra income is not going to matter as much. Steel Technology isn't too important for Empire because you get students in your campaign, so you can get a pretty good research rate in an Imperial campaign. So instead, just get all of the spells. Focus on these spells, on maxing out these spells first, and as well as the Pendulum. And then yeah, once you've gotten everything else, like if you just want to waste your points, get everything else over here, and that will unlock things over here. Like the Imperial heroes do have, like there's a lot of heroes in the game right now that will reach their potential at like rank 43, and this is with getting all of these skills. Like if we ignore the skill has dependence, that's weird, but if we ignore the skills, yeah, that is a bit weird. Oh yeah, it's a mentor situation. So if we ignore the skills over here, we can max out the magic skill line and Scouting at rank 26. Then there's the Warrior Priests. Warrior Priests are the casualty replenishment heroes, and they also give you growth. Now with Warrior Priests, what you want to do is always get a point of replenishment from the very start, and then get Armored, Impassioned, get 2 points in Impassioned, then get Hammer Sigmar as you unlock it. Buff up that melee defense, get 1 point in Wild Eye, get Faith's Passion, Sigmar's Ward, get Inviolable, 3 points, 1 point in Tenacity to get Benediction. Though even before that, like, as you unlock these spells, because it is going to require rank 15 to unlock Soulfire, as you unlock these spells, do get them as quickly as possible. Like when you unlock Hammer Sigmar, get it at rank 5. When you unlock Shield of Faith, get it instantly. Otherwise, just get the melee skill line and get casualty replenishment as it becomes available. Like whenever you can spend a point, like let me just reset it. So whenever you can spend a point in casualty replenishment, do so instantly, because it's generally the smarter thing to deal with. And then yes, get Soulfire, get the armor, get Benediction full-on armor over here. You might also even want to get the growth, because it can add up to a fairly substantial amount of growth if you do focus on it, but it isn't really a priority. Getting that casualty replenishment by up to 9% is, however, a fairly substantial benefit. And of course, Righteous Fury as well. Maxing out Wild Eye. Don't bother with Soothsaying or Conviction. Instead, like Fervor, for instance, then Mentor, then the other skills over here. Or you could get Soothsaying if you so desire, as opposed to some of these campaign actions, because campaign actions just aren't really that strong in Warhammer 3. So that's your Warrior Priest. Moving on to the Witch Hunter. The Witch Hunter is a hybrid melee ranged hero who's mainly, I think he's mainly designed to be used as a ranged hero. But his ranged ability is not that great, because he's a ranged hero, which already is pretty bad, but he's a ranged hero with gunpowder, which is the worst possible combination. So you're not really looking to use him for his combat ability, or looking to use him as a debuffer and to also give you more post-battle loot. So yes, Scavenge. You always want to get any point in Scavenge as you can. Otherwise, you get 1 point in Scavenge, 1 point in Bloody Blade, and then get Accusation, which really helps in killing enemy lords, in particular heroes in battle. And whenever you get a point and get 1 point in Elusive, then 2 points in Scavenge, get Sigmar's Ward, Gutter Fighter, get 3 points in Magic Resistance to give him that 10% ward save, get Stalker, into Survivalist, into Counter-Striker, into Slippery. And then eventually, full-on Scavenge, Tools of Judgment for the bonus against large. Like, if you're going to use him to shoot at anything, using him to shoot at large targets is the smart thing to do. So eventually you want to get Silver Bullets and for him, Gutter Fighter, buff down, maybe even buff up the speed. Don't improve the charge bonus, because that's pretty useless for Lords and Heroes. Instead, just buff on melee attack, buff the melee attack, buff the ranged attack, and even reduce corruption. Or, at this point you could buff up his leadership. But that's not really a great idea, because when he breaks, usually he's getting smashed to pieces. So you kind of want him to run away, because a hero or lord that's running away will have a better chance at survivability than one that's going to stay and fight until the end. Unbreakable sounds great in Fury and is great for certain lords, but isn't great on a hero like the Witch Hunter. Then finally we get the Imperial Captain. He has the ability to get training, so that's what you want to focus on. So you get 1 point in training whenever it's possible. Otherwise, you get full plate armor, balancing it out with Hold the Line, full plate armor, Sigmar's Ward, hard to hit, into Foe Seeker, into Blade Shield, 1 point Scarred Veteran, Deadly Onslaught, maximize training, maximize Scarred Veteran, and at this point, hard to hit, Deadly Blade, over here, Windmaker, in this particular order. Like, you want to get the armor first, then you want to get a point in melee defense. You'll eventually go all the way into an Imperial Pegasus, and at this point you might just say, what, screw it, let's go for it. Just maximize that kind of charge benefit with this particular skill, because this gives you 10%, and you're looking at plus 30 charge bonus, so you might actually end up with a decent amount of charge, but Lords and Heroes just aren't great with that. And then yes, also get Mentor as it's unlocked, and get these skills just to eventually get more and more in Mentor over there. And that is it for the Empire, for the Legendary Lords, the regular Lords, and the Heroes. Questine signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.